myself right. Reach out and touch the sky. Boy, you with me, don't wait for nights. Going back to get spirit baptized. Going in and to help myself right. Reach out and touch the sky. Boy, you with me, don't wait for nights. Going back to get spirit baptized.
Hey, welcome back to the I'm Going In podcast. My name is Todd Blyleven, and I'll be your host. Today, I've got an incredible guest by the name of Eric Rush. Eric, thank you, sir, for joining the I'm Going In podcast. Your journey of transformation and resilience is really nothing short of remarkable. We've had an opportunity to talk a couple times now prior to this recording. And just you surviving kind of the toughest battles, both mentally and physically. I'm excited to share with the audience and everybody that's listening your finding for calling and definitely what you're doing in the podcast world. But just excited to hear you share your incredible story of overcoming obstacles and finding purpose. So I'm hoping that this episode today inspires everybody to keep fighting, find the strength in your struggles and rise above the noise. And with that, let's dive into your story, brother. Eric, again, we're town neighbors here in North Texas, so super excited. That was weird that we're like so close to each other. But thank you for being on I'm Going In.
Thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it. It's interesting that somebody from Alaska put us together. That's the whole.
Thank you, Olivia. Olivia Atkins, by the way.
I know. Achieving Success, the podcast. It's like, what a wonder. That's the I say that's the omnipotence of Christ, fusing people together, putting people, like-minded people, Amen. Individuals that think alike and are believers believers in Christ, and he put you right next, right in the same stratosphere where you're, right, someone close that you can confide in and talk to when you need to. And I feel like that's even more of a blessing than being on the show today. So, after meeting you and getting to know you, I'm like, all right, that's a real one right there. Todd's a real one. So I feel real blessed. I feel very honored to be on your podcast today, knowing your story as well. So I want you to know that.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And we'll get into our faith as well. This is an open conversation, and I'm never afraid to talk about that. And I think we're starting to see that more and more in today's society. It's being more open in sports. You got more athletes. Athletes have always praised God for what they have been able to achieve. But you're seeing it more, I think, in an authentic setting today. And it's amazing that when you least expect it, you're introduced to people in your life that can somewhat either motivate you or help you in a way that can keep you rising if you're on that path to rise, or help pick you up to start that journey of I'm going in. You're getting ready to go in for yourself, you're going in for others. So Olivia, met her a couple years ago. Amazing individual, such an amazing spark plug, incredible businesswoman, has an awesome podcast. And very blessed that she was able to introduce us. So cool.
Yeah, for me, it's been, this whole podcast experience has been like an evolution, of I say there are things I needed to listen to, for a while, have a season of really listening, and so it's been a real blessing to have different types of guests for different genres of the podcasts that I host. And it really brought us because I think we're multidimensional people. So we have you have your professional, your businessman, you're a Christian. You have these different dimensions that we need information for, so that we can go get that whole thing can come together like a glove that fits, like a good baseball glove, and you want that bat that you want to be able to, get that tar on your, yeah, not the tar, but just get that bat and have a good grip on that bat, and so when you go up and swing, you can knock it out of the park. And I think that's the beauty of this whole thing is I said, man, I can't just focus on one thing, because like, honestly, like God made me a multi-dimensional person that and he gave me a multi-dimensional experience in life to go through to get to this place where you like learned a lot, so yeah. But to answer your question, who am I? Is that was your question? Was that the first?
Well, Eric, you know what, brother? Like, I think first of all, I have to, let the listeners know. I mean, you're a military veteran,
Yeah.
and thank you, sir, from the bottom of my heart. And I know all of our listeners that are on here for your service, for your sacrifice, for going over and keeping us safe and allowing us to do the podcast and have this conversation today. And so I'd love to just kind of dive into, let's share with the audience, because you have an incredible story of just your upbringing, the perseverance. So maybe talk about that upbringing a little bit on where you come from. And then what was that decision to get into military? That's what I ask our first responders on this was, give me a little bit of background on why you joined the military, what the purpose was, the goal. We can certainly talk about whatever you're comfortable with there, and then we'll lead into some conversation and then the aftermath. And then I'd like for you to share the downside. I want you to talk about that darkness that hit you after all those crazy things that you encountered as an individual. And then we'll talk about the rise, the moment you went back in for yourself. So let's talk about your childhood, where you started.
Okay, yeah, I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Go Spurs. Well, I used to say go Spurs, but, but I don't know what they're doing with that team. But for honestly, born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, I would say my childhood was not. I would say, I didn't have a childhood. I had survival training. And I love my parents. First of all, let me just put that out there first. I love my parents. They've evolved from where they started, as teen parents. So I want to honor them by saying
that's
that.
Tough.
You make a decision like that to have children. You're still a child yourself, emotional maturity, just having those be able to have those resources to provide. I think the need to provide outweighed the need to parent. And of course, when the plates are spinning, there's only so many you can, before something breaks and something falls and a child slips through the cracks. For me, that's the environment I grew up in. I feel like that, I love my mom. She was a single parent. My dad left when I was 5. I love my dad too. He grew up to be we get that momentum later on. It's how we finish. And so for me, it was really tough for my dad to be raised in a single parent home. So the problem is like I said, the need to provide outweighed the need to parent, and there was no time for bedtime stories and comfort, because the rent was due, the refrigerator was empty, and exhaustion was the only language spoken. And and for me, that going through that experience hardened me. It made me like grow up faster and do without, and not ask for anything extra than what was given to me. So, and that goes along with nurturing and parenting and guidance and emotional and spiritual guidance to navigate through this rough terrain, to navigate through the ocean. I use the analogy that I was a captain of a sinking ship long before I recognized I was on a sinking ship, where my ship was taking on water that I didn't see, that was almost unnoticeable. A childhood of just a childhood of survival, forged in stubbornness, Wow. And for me, going through that experience was really tough, because I knew there were elements of my personality and identity missing. So, when you go through life like that, when you reach the age of 18, you think you're tough, you think you're indestructible, unbreakable. But I was wrong. I was hollow, and I didn't have anything inside of me. So, so, for me, part joining the military was
Eric,
not,
what
yes,
do you mean? What do you mean by hollow?
like, well, when you're not mentored to have an identity, right? And you're just kind of left out in the ocean, floating, floating along because your mom's working 2 jobs or 3 jobs. There was nothing in like the need for the affection. There was no affection. There weren't these elements that nurturing aspect that children need to kind of feel worthy, feel valued, feel appreciated, and feel loved. The
So
need to provide, huh?
growing up in that environment
Yeah,
with your parents working so hard, being young, you
yeah,
didn't really have
right.
that
Yeah.
identity kind of set forth. There wasn't the affection. So how hard, were you? Did you get into trouble as a kid? Like what was that growing up like? Going through your high school years, your middle school years, trying to find yourself. Did you
It,
have?
it, it was very confusing. I was very
Yeah,
confused because my mom was a single parent. My dad, God rest his soul, that, we weren't getting very much money for child support, let's just say. In fact, it
yeah.
was maybe like $60 a piece, $120 a month. And
Wow.
that's not a swipe or anything. That's just the way it is. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
But my mom was working 2 or 3 jobs. So we were left to fend for ourselves quite a bit. And and when you go through that, like, you it's very hard. It's very hard because you don't know which way to go, what to do, who to be, and how to be, and I felt like I was out at sea by myself. I was out at
Wow.
sea on a just navigating through the waters, lost. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's very tough. Yeah. And
So now
that,
you're 18 and now you're hollow. You don't have this identity. So what was your next path there?
I mean, I enlisted without my family knowing, I
Oh,
mean,
wow. Okay.
yeah, and that's the thing, when people, there's a lot of us like that say, hey, I need to escape my environment, right? For me, I don't think it was part of that, but I think, like, it was not so much that I needed structure. I was desperate for identity, like, I want identity, and I would say a father figure to mentor me through the process as well, right? But with that, you know, when they say war will give you an identity. It'll
Yeah.
it'll it'll chisel you, it'll sharpen you, it'll make you an efficient machine, and you'll fit perfectly neatly into the slot of that machine. But what happens when that machine spits you out? What's going to become of you? So for me, enlisting was like, now that I have some time away from it, it's like you weren't even equipped to handle that. Like, you weren't ready for that because you had all this trauma, different kind of trauma. So you walk in
Yeah.
with this baggage already, and
Yeah.
the trauma and this trauma, and it just kind of perpetuated itself. You want chaos. I say I was forged in conflict and chaos. And
Yeah.
so we go into more conflict and more chaos. It's a recipe for disaster. It's like you're going to come out more confused, more angry, more, um, disoriented. And so I think that, unfortunately, I think that's what happens a lot with a lot of the combat veterans. There's some people that get in really early, and they're not really equipped, because I think you do have to have some essential tools before you enlist. I believe, like, um, uh, character, core values, something that gives you some stability to that
Uh-huh.
operate from, right? I mean, I think I got in several
Well,
fights.
I remember when I was in high school, and we'd always have the recruiters come into the school, and I was playing sports at the time, and I was, I had a pretty blessed. I had a good arm, and I had the pedigree with my dad playing, and so I was very well recognized across the country, and so I was in a different boat, right? I totally different than where you came from in terms of the upbringing and things, and I remember speaking to the Marine Corps recruiter. My grandpa was, career military gunny. My other grandfather was career Navy. And so my mom's side was all military, Air Force, Army, like hit them all. And so I had a comfortability, I enjoyed speaking to those recruiters, and they knew I was going off to college, but maybe one day I'd want to join. And I expressed interest in the Marine Corps. So I remember going down to that office and seeing the pamphlets and feeling welcomed. And it does, like, and even me having the grounding that I had, there's still this kind of sense of maybe there's more there. And when you're around that environment of military, I knew I was a devil pup. So my grandpa would take me down to Camp Pendleton, and I'd wear the fatigues and I'd roll around, and I was digging trenches and all kinds of things, right? But there was a sense of togetherness. Sports, it's a lot like that. First responders, it's a lot like that, right? It's that family togetherness, that brotherhood, sisterhood bond, that if you don't have that, I could see where I was attracted to it. Oh my gosh, like I could imagine you going into that office and going, okay, like someone sees me, they know me, and then you're there. But to your point, you're bringing up a really good point with this, and this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
You weren't all together inside, and so your purpose was to try to find something where you're suggesting too, like, hey, try to identify maybe a little bit more about yourself before you go into that enlistment approach. But yeah, it's super powerful. I think you just making that turn for yourself, though, recognizing you needed that, that's incredible, man.
Yeah, that's the hard part. I recognize it now. I wish I would recognize it then. But at the same time, it really does impact you. You don't, because I would, and that's not, I'm like, let's just say you're going to basic training, right? You're in basic training with people that are escaping their environment, and they might be twice as worse than mine. They may have been in really deep, former, family dad was a gag member, whatever. You go in there and you can tell who's had dysfunction in their life, because the ones that were having trouble following orders, following structure, they were very combative. We get in fist fights, some of us, we get in fist fights with each other, knowing that this person wasn't going to take crap from somebody who was higher ranked than him, or it didn't matter if it was a drill sergeant or not, it'd be like,
yeah,
that stubbornness. And that's why I say a fortified with stubbornness, where this survival mode is like, hey, like I'm holding on to what all I got, So you go in there with that mindset too. And you could tell it was like, one time this guy like shot his mouth, like he just kept shooting his mouth out the drill sergeant. And the guy said, get yourself a shovel and start digging yourself a hole. You're going to dig 6 feet wide, 9 feet deep. And he was digging the whole time. I was like, and he still was talking, he's still talking crap. And I was like, oh my God, this guy, you could tell that guy had some problems. And he still, after he got done, and the drill sergeant said, put it back in. He's like, I'm not doing it. He ran off in the woods and just had to go chase him down. It was pretty tough.
Wow.
But yeah, these things, you can get also, like, you can actually flip it too. You can get so locked in that there's no coming back, like you're locked in, and it's like you got hardened, like, a story.
And you were in the Army, right?
Yeah. And yes. And I'll share with you a story. Like when I got deployed, like I just got back from training, it was just like first week, wasn't planning. I was like, this is where, like get home. My buddy and I went out and had a couple of beers, and we get the phone call, Red Bull alert. You pack your bags, get ready, meet us here at this 800 or whatever. And we're like, holy crap. Like we were only there. We had only been together for like 2 days, and we were getting ready to ship out. And for me, the tension, that the relationship between my mother and father was very tumultuous, like very, very tumultuous my entire life. And that contributed to a lot of the tension too, being just, the whole single parent thing, with child, stuff. And my mom didn't want to be anywhere around my father for various reasons, and the day I was getting ready to be deployed. The day I was getting ready get on the plane to go to the Middle East, my mother, my mother and I went. I was standing with my mother, and my dad was by the bus that was going to take us to the plane, and we were pretty far away, and like pretty far from the bus. I said, "Mom, can we scoot over to closer to the bus, please?" Because and she refused. She just refused, dude. I can tell you, like I was like, "Please, Mom, let's just get closer to the bus." And she said, "Your dad's there. I'm not going anywhere there." And I said, "Please, Mom." She goes, "If you don't like it, I'll just leave." And when you have when you're walking into a very tense situation, like you may not see me again situation, like, do you know the gravity of having to deal with this family dysfunction, this family trauma, and then carry it with you onto the bus and on the plane and in the middle of the desert, where you're going to be in 23 hours. And for me, like, I was so full of rage, that's the stubbornness that I was experiencing from my mother, whatever the reason was. I don't know if it was valid enough for this particular moment. It was very self-serving. And I walked on that bus, and I was so angry and very hurt and very upset that my mom threatened to leave in this moment that was very serious, very surreal moment. And I think that was a contributing factor for me to go in there and lock out everything, just get angry and upset and let's go, like block out these emotions. F everybody. We're going to do it this way. And that's what I did. And and unfortunately that's the mindset I had throughout. And yeah, so, and you're out there.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way you painted that picture, brother. I mean, like, first of all, I'm sorry you had to go through that in that particular moment. And God does work in mysterious ways. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you needed to be hard in that moment, going over into the situation that you were going into. I talked to first responders about, especially in police, where they talk about, like, they want to have peace in their life. You wanted to have peace in your life in that one moment, like, hey, this is about me. I may not see you guys again. I'm going into this battle situation. Like, just put all your stubbornness and everybody aside. Focus on me for just 30 seconds and let me say my goodbyes and get on that bus in a peaceful way. But maybe you weren't supposed to be in peace in that moment. Maybe like in law enforcement, they're not supposed to be at peace because their lives are always at risk. Like, it's different. They go from call to call to call. They go on a domestic violence call. They walk into a house. They're trying to arrest the male or the female or whoever's doing the bad stuff. And they don't know if all of a sudden they're going to get a bat to the back of the head or whatever. So their eyes are always on a swivel. They're always on this vigilant state. They can't be at peace because that's how they're able to save themselves and save other people, right? And maybe that's why you're still here too, to be able to tell us a story. That
I think
to have a little bit of rage.
Yeah, I think I think that callus was fortified, like, throughout that process. Like, it was ready. There was already that situation, like, multiple times over. Except this was a very serious situation. This is I'm getting ready to go to war, and so for me, that, I think that tuned me out, and I do think it took some focus. I remember a lot of the guys would say, "Man, this Rush is going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy to pull us out of this thing. He's the one that's going to dodge the bullet. He's the one that's going to save." It was this story around my, whatever persona that was. It was just like, and I was really locked in, and so for me, I think I locked in and locked out a lot of things too. So it's kind of both. But no, I think you're right too, man. I think, if it wasn't for that, I probably, because you see people lose they lose themselves right away in the first bomb that goes off. And I've seen guys like drop what they're doing, run out in the middle of the desert and say, "Where you going, man? Like, you ain't got nowhere to run. Like, there ain't no trees, there ain't nothing hiding, there ain't no buildings. Like, where are you going?" Like, and they're screaming, "I don't want to be here." we just got here like 15 minutes ago. You're hearing all these bullets. But I understand,
Yeah.
like, you have lieutenants breaking down and you're like, oh shit, like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do right now? Like,
Yeah.
and someone's got to be hard, someone's got to stay hard, and stay dialed in, and so yeah. But when I came back, I was exhausted emotionally, physically, spiritually exhausted. There was a lot of, I think what people don't realize is this is what people don't want to talk about. People don't want to talk about. It's like 55% of veterans, they'll say the hardest part of war is not what happens in the battlefield. It's it's coming home, because the same person, the person who left is not the one that the person who left is not the one that returns home.
Yeah.
You don't you're unrecognizable to yourself and to others in many ways. In some cases, I say the ones that had that awesome upbringing, and that, like, they're the ones that probably go into the Green Beret guys. They're the ones who had that, they had that fortified with that family resilience that that you talk about. Your family supported your endeavors in sports and this culture, and created this support system for you. So I think those guys. But then there's some that you go, dude, like, this guy came from like the same place I did, broken home, and he mustered up all the, God poured that wisdom somewhere down the road, and he had those open ears, and he took note, and he made an amazing career out of his experience. For me, I think coming back was, I think, like I said, what happens in the battlefield is hard, but I think the other part is I would say the social elements, that happen, that you really start getting worried. Like, you hear about people's spouses cheating on their husbands while they're deployed. Some other guys living in your apartment with her, and somebody's driving your vehicle. All your money's gone. Your bank account's been robbed, like, by some dude. Your wife turned into a drug addict with some guy she met at the bar. It's like, you hear all these things, and you're like, coming home, it's like, what am I going to come home to?
Yeah.
And you hear that, and it really kind of, it disturbs you. I started fighting with my wife for no reason at all. I just had all these stories going on around me, and you just, like, you screaming at her for no reason at all, like, because you believe that she might be unfaithful with you, and you just have this moments of breakdown. So I think the hardest part, some people, I would say 55% say that not what happens in the battlefield is coming home, because you're not the same one. You have no face, no name, and barely, like, you don't even have a purpose anymore, like, so
I think that's, like, touching on that part of it too. You go into the military with no structure. Military provides structure. They provide this soldier mentality. You're around the family. You're around your trusted brothers and sisters that are in combat with you, especially in a combat environment. I can only speak to my relatability in a real life chaotic situation, where in that moment of chaos and ultimate trust, you're with those people that you trust, that are going to be able to get others out to save their lives. You're running into a battlefield with bullets flying around you. We didn't have weapons or strategy to eliminate the threat. We were trying to avoid the death and being shot. But the togetherness portion of that ultimate inspiration that you feel when you're not alone in that chaotic state, is really magical. And as chaotic as what it is, so talking about, like, you made a comment, and I've talked to other military vets before. A lot of times it's not the moment of that, or the things that happen in the battlefield. Yeah, very scarring, but it's the aftermath, the silence, the dealing with things from home. And then you come home, and now you're trying to deal with all these things, trying to put all the pieces together and be like, how do I get back to the resilience part of being who I was before? Do I really even want to be that person before? I kind of like the other part, right? And then the other people around you are going, well, what happened to you? Like, what's going on with you? Or why are you staring off? And why is your speech stuttered sometimes? Or why are you screaming in the middle of the night? Why you have these nightmares? And they just don't get it. And there's no education. There's not enough education still today, providing education to families and friends and the community of what you are going through, to where they can be empathy and be able to embrace you more. Back like when we had the World War I and World War II, man, like our country stood up for our soldiers, and they came back and they had parades and people were welcoming, and they saw the shiny, what you have on your chest, and it was so like patriotic. All of a sudden we lost that. And so here you were in that era where it was lost, and you just weren't get it. You were like told to just suck it up, buttercup, and go do your thing. So with all of that came down on you, where did you turn when you got home, and what happened from that point?
Well, I'll say it like this, that like I said, the leaks in my ship, my ship been taking on water for long before I recognized it. The childhood, fortified with stubbornness. The war, like you said, the war in silence, like you struggled with it in silence, right? You didn't deal with it. For me, and that's the thing, is when you come back without an identity, or you'll latch on to anything that makes you feel real again. For some it's violence, for some others it's the bottle, and for me it was both. And the violence, the substance issues that I dealt with were very serious. Those are the things that made me feel real again. I thought they were like, I say that, drowning doesn't feel like drowning, until it feels like floating at first, and then you wake up, and that floating turns around. You wake up one day, you're at the bottom, and I kind of equated to that. Wow. It's like drowning doesn't feel like drowning at first. It feels like floating, and for me, I'll say, like, when my existence became unbearable, I turned to that, like I didn't want to be around. I didn't want to be in this place where I had to deal with what was going on with me. I didn't know what was going on with me, for that matter. I didn't the worst part of it is I didn't even know I was drowning. It was like, I wake up and I'm at the bottom. I'm in the bottom of the ocean. I'm in the bottom. Wow. And that is when I'll say that was when I would say, okay, hey, I didn't realize it. I didn't know, but the truth is I didn't feel what drowning felt like until eventually all my substance use caught up to me, and I went to prison, and that's when I really felt that's when I know what drowning really felt like. I guess you wake up and you're like, yeah, okay, this is drowning, and that, and so because throughout the process, I was getting treated for substance abuse, and that's just a symptom of something greater going on, the greater going on in you. Like they say that you got to treat the root cause all the time, right? You got to treat the root cause. Well, I spent years going down this road. In 2 years after I came back, I had 3 DUIs right away. I mean, my life was like checkmated. Wow. and a drug possession charge. So it was like checkmate. Like, guess what? The next 10 years, you're going to be trying to swim back to the shore. You're going to start trying to swim back. Your boat sunk and you're stuck, I don't know, life preserver, and so for me, it happened really fast. It was like I was married before I left, divorced 3 months afterwards. And that's another thing, another notch, like finances go to crap, and this, your wife left you, and now you're alone. And the hardest part is okay, you're getting treated you're going through this, and it's still not fixing you. It's still not helping you. It's still not, you're not feeling that it's not doing it. But I was in California, and I on just a random visit, I had a nasal infection real bad. I had filled out paperwork to do this stuff. And people, because man, there's something wrong, everyone knew something was wrong with me. Everyone knew, I had personality problems, I was an asshole. I was I was a jerk. And, and for me, it was like, I knew I had personality problems, but in this one instant, I went to the VA and the psychologist came out instead of the nurse after I was there for a nasal infection. She just said, "Have you ever been diagnosed with combat PTSD?" And it was just like boom, it was like a bomb went off in my life. I fell to my knees, was bawling, crying, like, and it just became something super real, and 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 she
Was this
said,
before prison or after prison?
before, no,
After
yeah,
prison.
yeah,
Yeah.
after prison, yeah. Um, and like I said, I spent years getting treated for the symptom, but not the root cause. So once I started getting, once the treatment started for me, started through the process of going through counseling for PTSD and stuff, like I started relapsing worse. Slept in my car, was living in my car for a while because I was having to untangle a bunch of hard wiring that I had imprinted in me. It was a survival mode the whole time. I was in, I was in hypervigilance survival mode. Started living in my car and just detached myself from everyone, everything. But once I started getting the treatment, I stayed in the treatment for a long time, and I started to see the light a little bit more because now
what kind of treatment were you guys doing?
I call it CPT. I think it's cognitive behavioral processing or something like that, and different types of therapies.
Were you doing anything with like EMDR, or was it more talkative therapy? Just
some of it, yeah.
Trying to just unleash some of the little pieces that you remembered one at a time, and the process, right? You said it was a long process.
CBT, CPT, and different types of processes. But yeah, so I think just having to talk about it with my counselor, and I spent a lot of time avoiding the whole situation, because it costs. When your life unravels, when you come back from deployment, it's like, okay, man, it's very tough because you're dealing with more stuff with that, it's a whole. But
it wasn't even tough, Eric.
Yeah.
You were knocked on your ass,
Yeah.
and you went into the military not hollow. You had a shell, but you didn't have any insides. And then the military gave you what you were looking for in that moment. And then you come out in this combative state already hard.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to redefine, like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? And you have no guidance. You have nobody there to really give you structure. You have nobody offering you, hey, come and work for me as a whatever, right? And so you're trying to find all this out. In the meantime, you got all this rage still trying to figure out how the heck am I supposed to deal with these things. And it's sad, but it's no surprise that our men and women that go through what you went through come back and experience the trauma and have to walk down that hard path that you did. And I know everybody's story is different. And so thank God that after you went through your time and you were able to persevere through all that and survive, that all of a sudden this person says, hey, you need help. And at that moment you embraced and you fell to your knees and you took to the therapy and went on that journey. It's awesome.
Yeah.
To me, that's the moment you went in for yourself.
Yeah. That's true. It's true too, man. And then I was like, they 100%ed me the first time. It was like 100%. They knew they had already seen the writing on the wall. It was like, I hadn't got any counseling at all, but that was one of that moment where we sat down. It was bad. I broke down, fell to my knees, started crying. I couldn't get myself to say what was wrong. I didn't know how to say what was wrong. I didn't know how, it was like this whole thing where you always say you don't even know how to ask for help, or you don't know what you're asking for help, but but through that process, it's like you have to ask, the question is like, you have to know why, so you can know how, right? Like, how can you stop why did you have to drink that much? Why did you have to, go drink? Why did you have to go to that coping mechanism that was, so why did you have to do that? What was the reason, And for me, that was a very, the PTSD treatment helped me realize that I was turning to a coping mechanism because of, the hypervigilance of wanting to feel, I could go in places I felt like, everyone like was just like, like I felt threatened the whole time. And so yeah, so I always say it, the diagnosis isn't a prison sentence. It was a lifeline. And and that's when I started to work. It's like, that's when I started to go work and say, like I didn't do it alone. The VA helped me. With the help of the VA, I was able to, crawl my way day by day, back, step by step, day by day, to get to a better place, and of course, it was a lot of undoing. Had to undo some of these things that I was just, a lot of it too, when in that process too, was like, dude, I've held on. Well, you just went to prison, dude, too, like you were in prison, so you have all this, you have the shame, guilt, resentment, all these, or not shame, guilt, and that alone is enough, and trauma, and like the combat stuff is like, well, I got that, but it's like, it wasn't one of those thoughts in my head, but I held on to it and just kept it, like, didn't want to let go, because it was like, this was the fuel that I was trying to get myself to outlive. I was trying to outlive my past, I was trying to live those 2 or 3 years of my life, and 7 colleges, I went to 7 colleges trying to educate myself. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And, like I said, when the turning point was when the VA started, they got involved, and when they started helping me go through that experience and give me essential tools to think differently about substance use, and I needed to know why, so I could know how, and why I had turned to that. And I think it was a very stressful time in my life during those during the time of my being deployed and coming back and not assimilating very well, and losing myself even further. I was already lost. You take me to war and someone's already broken. They're going to be broken when they come back even worse. But the healing.
So at what point did God come into your picture?
That's a great question, because I'll tell you when. I always say there's these 3 moments in time, right? That you go, okay, these are 3 moments. And one of them was when I was incarcerated. I was in a cell. I had just got sentenced, and I came back and I got in a fight. I beat some guy up when I got back to the cell, because I just got sentenced, and some guy bumped me, like passing the bunk, and I just like beat the crap out of him. So they put me in solitary confinement. Along the way, there were people that were trying to intervene in my life, trying to save me from going down that road, trying to save me. And there was a pastor, a priest, Father Bill Quigley, I just talked to like last month for the first time in over 20 years.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He knew everything. He's like, and when I got in a fight, it was just before Easter, and it was like 30 days before Easter. And they sentenced me to solitary confinement for 30 days. And he said, Rush, you're going to go into this cell, and it's just going to be like your tomb, your personal tomb. You're going to go in here, and you're going to walk while you're in there for these 30 days. You're going to write everything on the wall. You're going to write all your resentments, all the people that hurt you, all the things that you've done wrong, the people you hurt, all your shortcomings, all the shame and guilt. You're going to write it on the wall, and you're going to leave it there. And so I did exactly that with a little pencil that they give you with no eraser. Started writing down all the hurts and pains. But it was this whole thing about like being like Christ in your own tomb, that when the door opens, you're going to be free. At the same time, I say like, hey, look, I wasn't trapped in that cell I was trapped inside myself, like, and when you're inside yourself, it's, it whispers. Then, first the silence wasn't, then felt like nothing. And then silence started to grow teeth, the nothing started to grow teeth. And then nothing starts to whisper everything you've been running from. And while you're in there, you're confronting yourself. And in that dark space, God revealed himself. All I could have in that thing, because I lost all my privileges, was a Bible and that pencil and some paper. And I just got into Word, started reading the Acts and things that were just inspiring and motivating. I started singing hymnals and stuff like that, and there by myself. And it was just a very confronting experience for me to be a part of, understanding where God could find in the darkest place of this world, where you'll find him. And that was one moment. And I would say that's the beginning of one particular strong moment. And the second time was I was in a behavioral modification program. And behavior modification programs, they in prison, it's like a inmates run the asylum, but you have to hold people accountable for, like, being disrespectful and stuff like that. But we're dealing with gang members, and we're dealing with people that are hardcore criminals that, that they give zero F's about anybody, anything, and how anyone behaves, I mean, and when you're trying to run a program and trying to get out, it's very hard. But some people have to be the leaders of that community, that while you're in that behavior modification program. And they made me a leader. And in that leadership, it came with consequences. It came with, like, don't confront me, don't do this to me, don't do that to me. Well, don't do that, and don't do that to the crypt leader, and don't do that to the blood leader. And it's like, okay, like, what program am I running here? I'm gonna get kicked out of the program from not running a program.
Yeah.
So but part of the gang life is like, hey, you got to run this program because we need you back out in the streets. It's like, okay, I'm running my program, I don't give a crap. But ultimately what ended up happening is they did this thing called round robin. We would have confrontation hours, and we would confront people on their behaviors or non-caring attitudes about things, or being too loud or whatever, stupid stuff. But the counselor knew that I was pretty good at playing this role, real good at, like, holding people accountable, master at it, probably. So they put me in a conference. They put me in the middle they put me in a chair. They would put two people in a chair, but this time with just me. And the whole, probably like 50 inmates were around me. They all sat around in a circle, and I was the chair in the middle.
Wow.
Every one of them confronted me. Every single one of them confronted me on a behavior, attitude, or something. And man, I swear, it was like people were just laying in on me. I don't appreciate how you took me to encounter for this and this. And I was like, and it just, like, I swear, I was like, I would always see flashes of Christ on, crucified. I was just like, I was crying, and I was just broken, man. I was just like they had just spiritually beat me to death, like,
Wow.
And they just broke that, whatever manipulation tactic I had in me. Like, after that whole round robin, it was about 50 inmates. You got to know, these guys can be brutal with their words and obviously with their actions too. But, while I was in there, I had gotten involved with the gang because I thought I was going to throw my life away. I would swear. I was like, F this. Like, let's go. We can go hard or go nothing at all.
Wow.
A lot of the gang members knew this. And, man, you don't belong in here, dude. Like, this is not your life, man. Like, you don't belong here. You're just here for, this 2-year stint. Like, if you kill somebody, you're gonna be here for the rest of your life. You don't want to do it. And I actually thought I was gonna wanted to do that. So I almost threw my life away, for sure. But the last day of that program, 5 guys said, "Rush, we gotta follow us to a shower, man." And I was like, okay. And they said, "We don't want you here ever again. So we do this out of love." And they call it a suburban. And 5 guys just beat the crap out of me, like, just put their hands on me and just I was, when I left the prison, my whole body was black. They said, if you fall to the ground, it's fair game. We're gonna kick you in the face, So you better stay standing up. And all they did was do body shots on me. And they said, we don't want you here, man. You don't need to be there. Go out there and be somebody. And
Wow.
yeah. And it was a very painful experience. I was very angry that I allowed people to touch me that way, that hurt me that way. And to willfully put myself in that position to submit to this organized criminal organization, to be, these were the, my own, they call famas, your familia, your canales, you're like, hey, hey, these guys are hurting me like this, and so, but, I said,
Was that their way of
just,
number one, recognizing that you did not belong in that environment? They saw something better for you, but the only way that you were going to be able to exit that environment was by going through this ritual of, this is their acceptance of you leaving. Is that what that was all about?
It was also
to go
like
through that pain.
That it was to say, remember this beating when you decide to do something that's going to bring you back here, because it's like, and that was the punctuation point.
Wow.
It was like, remember this, and it was 5 guys, like not like light punches. They were like, everyone was going full on.
Can't even imagine.
And I saw stars, my eyes, I started blacking out, like, but I never hit the ground, thank God. but yeah, they beat the crap out of me. I came out like all black and blue. Even the guards, when I was changing out to my civilian, goes, "What happened, dude?" And I was like, "Man, I fell off my bunk." It was like something I could, but I said, I fell off my bunk, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they just let it go. But yeah, it was that severe beating. I think that was one of those moments where you're like, okay, I'm never going to put myself through this humiliation again. These guys being, it's enough to be in prison and go through the humiliation of dropping your drawers and doing all that crap, but having some guys beat the crap out of you, that was like, that was never going to happen to me in there. And everyone knew, like, because, I was a right-hand man to the, one of the guys, like, I was like, I was like that thing, and so, but they were right. That wasn't my place to be. I had ran into people that, were doing life sentences, and along the way, and the lifelessness of their soul was really, I always say that, you're never, no one's ever the worst thing they've ever done, no one's the worst thing they've ever did, they're, and there's not an us in them, like, process being in the time, in a place that's time stands still, it reveals the truth. There's no us in them, like this young man, he made a decision, and the prison sentence isn't one on paper. It's the fact that he's never going to be able to rewrite his story again, ever. He's never going to be able to rewrite his story, right. And that humanity, in that dark place, humanity, flickers no matter what. So those were eye-opening experiences for me. But that blood whipping I took was like, okay, man, don't ever put yourself in this position again, So, hey,
and you didn't.
Didn't.
Yeah,
but
you listened.
Yeah. But it's weird because you get out of the program and they say you need to report to this community in Austin, where because I'm from San Antonio, so you got to go to Austin. You're gonna have to go report to Austin and go report to this guy and tell him you're out, which is one of the gang leaders on the streets that's in the therapeutic community over there. So this letter follows you everywhere. So instead of going to that Austin, I had devised a plan. I said, God, I just heard someone say, go north. I don't know what it was, but I said, I'm going north. And I ended up going to the Waco halfway house, because you transition out to a halfway house. Mm-hmm. And when I went north, I strategically remember going to the law library and saying, I want to find the city that has the most churches in Texas, and I'm going to go there. Or it has a good Christian place. And I went north and ended up in Waco, and that was one of the best decisions I made in my life.
Wow.
Because it's a game of inches when you're in that situation. And but going to Waco really helped me start to go down the direction I was supposed to be on, because I got accepted, started going to school. Then I bravely applied at Baylor University, and and I was going to church, and it was weird because I was part of this life group, and the guy who was the leader of the life group ended up being a student advisor that I sat in a meeting with, who interviewed me. He goes, "What are you doing here, Rush?" I go, "I'm applying to come to school here." And he's like, "What? Oh my God." And they wanted to hear my story because they knew I had some convictions. And when I sat down, it was like, it's like, dude, you're in. Like, and I got accepted to Baylor
Wow.
University. My family was like shocked. They didn't believe me.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, they were like,
Yeah.
nah, of course you build so much momentum being another person, but um, but yeah, that was the one of the main point. That was a turning point where I said, okay, but God has been really been with me. I've been on a pilgrimage with Christ this whole time, like that's what I say. It's like God has pushed me to make decisions that I was alone, where I felt where I need to be alone with him, and be obedient. Go down this, keep showing up to class, keep showing up to school, keep doing this, keep doing that, and I will reveal myself to you. But yeah, like, and he has show up, be present, you don't got time for feelings right now, man. You got time for facts, like, and you got time for no feelings. I show myself to like feelings as far as like, I'm saying like anxiety and fear and all, it's like, I didn't have no time for that stuff. I was like, you gotta make the next best move. And, God gave me the wisdom to understand that. But I
I'll
ended
tell
up,
you, man, Eric, like you listen to your story and you think about all the different touch points that you probably had with God opening up a door, closing a door, putting armor on you, making sure you were hard in certain aspects of your life to make sure that you stayed alive because there's a bigger purpose ahead of
mhm,
all of this. And that's how God continues to stay relevant too, is through stories like through you. So he
mhm,
put you through challenges enough to where in the moment you weren't supposed to fall to the ground and you didn't. And you stayed on your feet and you stayed on your feet all the way through. And when it was time for you to hit your knees and when it was time for you to fall and say, I can't do this, you had that therapist there, right?
yeah,
The combat PTSD diagnosis that allowed
yeah,
you to now learn how to process all of this stuff that happened to you and now to make you the man that you are. And your perseverance to want to educate yourself and even the strategic thinking that you probably learned along the way through all of your adversities that you dealt with, but then your time spent in the army, and then to say, I'm not going south, I'm going north, and I'm going to go to Waco, and I'm going to continue this good feeling that I have inside. I'm going to educate myself, man. Like, and then you get into Baylor, so
yeah,
it's so cool because I know you're gonna. I want to jump into the podcasting part and how you got to where you are today.
yeah,
But I know when I met you, you're just a really nice guy. Like you're someone that you're like your smile, your laugh is contagious, and you just got strength amongst you. Like I know you've been through some stuff, but man, you're tough. You're just a good human being. It's in your soul. You've just
yeah,
been dealt some bad cards, but you found the light and now you're telling a story for others to follow you, right? And to maybe make a better decision. So, man,
yeah.
you're such an
You know,
inspiration.
no, it's true. Like, and
Cool.
it's here. It's awesome to hear you say that because, like,
Mm.
and that's why I got emotional. Is because, like, you have to understand that I was a likable guy. Like before all this stuff. Like I was a likable guy when I got deployed. I told you how I went into it, and I lost myself, like completely went dark. I went like ultra, stoic and like serious and survival and like, let's make this, let's make someone else fall to their knees, kind of thing. And then the numbness out of that came out numb, and then going to prison, having to be hard with that and hard. And it's a beautiful, it's awesome because this is the person I've been wanting to come back to this whole time.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
person that I aspire to be. When I think about my father who
Mm.
passed away, Um, what I really loved about him, um, is his personality, his charm, his charisma, his joyfulness, his playfulness, his bad jokes and everything. That was the one thing that I admired him about the most, was like he had over 150 people show up to his funeral when he passed away.
Hmm.
When I was the first to eulogize, to go up there and talk, and I said, how many of y'all had a beer with my dad? I swear to God, 150 people stood up. And I was like, holy crap, he was that guy, And I wanted to be that guy my whole life, I wanted to be that guy with the way he was. So I feel when you say that, you're speaking the absolute truth to who I've always I aspired to be. So I appreciate that. So thank you. So, but yeah, that's it's true, man. Like, yeah, and I feel that way. I actually feel that way too. Like that's what I actually feel in my heart. Like I'm returning to, I always say I'm living my life backwards. Like I think I've told you that before. I feel like I'm living my life backwards. Like I'm undoing and saying, this is a new you, like this is, hey, I've had a lot of new yous. It's a better version. I'm happily married. I got a great wife. I got a cute little dog. Let's sleep.
Yeah, I know. They see the dog in the background. It's cool.
Yeah. No. But no, it's been this is who the essence of who I'm at the core. And the habit self was conflicted. The inner self was always trying to find its way back to planet Earth. So yeah.
Well, and then talk to us about, we're going to start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the Prime Pitch Podcast Network and what you've been doing. And I know you're doing incredible things in the podcasting world, and you're getting ready to go out and where you're going to be speaking and going out on these tours and telling your story and just crushing souls, brother. So it's awesome.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. I got into podcasting thinking that I was providing a lifeline for others, but I was wrong. It wasn't the talking that saved me. It was the listening. Like I intentionally went on this pilgrimage to get myself in front of people so that I could start hearing, start listening to how to do things differently, and how to live a different way. If I have veterans, entrepreneurs, other people that have had faced their own storms, and whenever they talked, they weren't just telling me their stories; they were actually holding a mirror to mine. And when I would hear it, I'd be like, I would sometimes get choked up. I'd be like, that's me. I feel like this right now. Like I've been through that. Right? Somebody who'd been a pastor that had been in prison. I never told him I was in prison, but I listened to him and I just said, dude, that's you, man. Like he's telling the story. He's telling your story. And as I revealed this, it was like, I learned that our stories are never meant to be carried alone. We're not, this is something, a fact, that our stories were never to be carried alone. They're to be shared with other people. And I finally, got into now that I'm turning into having podcasts with you, it really is it's really a blessing. But the podcasting part is always being an active listener. It's about learning, listening, and healing. And this is still a pilgrimage for me with Christ, and saying, hey, heal, keep healing, get stronger. And don't worry about the other stuff, man. The magic will happen when it's supposed to happen. When the conversation you're going to get in front of people, that's a culmination of sitting down and talking with you, Todd, as a combination of talking to that person on the TV and the other person, other person before that. And this getting this courage that I've evolved. I really would like to take all the credit, or say, hey, yes, I've been through a journey, but actively plugging in and making the connection. We when we stop talking at the world and we start listening to it, that's when the magic happens, when we're in connection with one another. So the podcasting sphere with Prime Pitch Podcast Network, primary goal is to make solid connections and give people a platform to share their story. And I'll be honest, part of it's for me too. Awesome. It's like a lot of it's for me as well. I'm still in the process of rehabilitation but when I get in that, this has been a tool for me to kind of have these one-on-one sessions with these master thinkers, so but I share their knowledge with the world too, and I've been very blessed by it, and that's the way I use it as. But we'll see what happens after that. The speaking engagements I'm excited about too.
It's such a cool thing you've done, and it's interesting. Like when we come across people that we automatically just enjoy being around, it's an onion, right? And we never ever spend enough time unpeeling the layers to try to understand where that person's core really came from. And we ask, like, hey, how you doing? Like, oh, where are you from? And we have these kind of questions. And we as people were like, well, I was born in Edina, Minnesota, and I was raised all over the country. And you kind of give the 30-second version,
Yeah.
but there's so much more to it, right? And
Yeah.
then you have stories like yours that just have so many onion layers, and everything that you have said, just the power of it, the steps, the perseverance, the will to survive, the will to just want something better for yourself and for all of those around you, and everything. And you're like wanting purpose for everything that you've ever done. And the hard stuff that you've had to deal with, like, give me some reasoning on why I had to go through all that. And now it's here. Like, you're telling stories, and dude, I've seen your setup, like with the podcast stuff. It's awesome. Like, I mean, I can't wait to be
I can't wait. Yeah. I
on your
can't wait
show
to have,
one day. I know
yeah.
we've talked about that. I can't wait because you're just super dialed in, and
Yeah.
it's
No,
really cool to see, man.
I say that I don't, I'm not speaking from experience. I say that I'm speaking from expertise, and that I feel like I am a subject matter expert on the human experience because I have lived it. I've died to it. I've surrendered to it. You know, I've learned it in so many ways, in dark
Amen.
places and beautiful places, sitting down
Yeah.
and listening to people. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I feel 100% like I'm dialed in
Wow.
to that. Yeah.
So, how do people, I mean, is it just the Prime Pitch Podcast Network.com? I know it's been flashing on the podcast as we've been
Yeah.
speaking and things. Um, Anything you want to kind of wrap up this show with? Any message that you'd like to provide to, whether it's veterans or people that have struggled, or maybe some young people that might be listening? I always think about, a podcast, as you know, it's very rare that there's going to be a group of people watching this show all at one time. So it's usually somebody with earbuds in, walking,
Mhm.
doing their thing, working out, driving somewhere, maybe kicking back in their comfortable spot, listening to your story. What do you want to tell them?
I have something that I wrote down just for this
All
question. Okay.
right, let's go.
I'm going to say this. For years, I thought strength meant holding on. I thought survival meant fight harder. I thought I had to do it alone, but I was wrong. Sometimes real strength is not gripping onto the wheel; it's knowing when to let go. And um, the question is what storm are you fighting alone? What weight are you carrying that you were never meant to bear? And what if the very thing you're afraid of releasing is the thing that could save you? Um, I was never meant to do it alone. Whoever's listening, you're not meant to do it alone. The lifeboat is here. It's here. He's reaching out. Will you take his hand?
Mm.
And because I did, and that's why I'm able to be on this podcast today. And all the glory and honor goes to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who saved me from the sinking ship. And I've been very blessed and very fortunate. So get in front of people that the lifeboat is here. You just, and yeah. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at primepitchpodcast.com, or you can call me 214-923-0923 anytime. Drop me a line, send me a message, let me know who you are, and we'll see if we can work something out. Be happy to coach you on any way you possibly need help with.
You just gave me the chills, brother. Yeah, so cool. The lifeboat, it's here.
Lifeboat
Yeah.
is here, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm a living testament to that.
You
So,
are. You really are, man. I thank you so much for just, just your patriotism, going out way and above, sacrificing everything for us to do this today. Like I mentioned earlier, your perseverance, your growth through life. we're not all perfect. We've all made mistakes. You can't look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm perfect. So we've all have challenges. And just the fact that you have turned yourself into this beacon of light, this person that has a story of strength and honor and faith. So
Thank you.
love the connection. Thank you again for being on I'm Going In. Thank you for going in for yourself. And now thank you for going in for others.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate your time. Thank you for giving me this platform to share my story. I'll reflect on this conversation we had, and I'll be able to go look at what was shared, who I am. I'll get to learn more about myself through this podcast as well, because it'll be a reflection I'll be able to listen to. And it's a pleasure and honor to know you. It's a pleasure to be your neighbor. But we just need to get that barbecue on whenever we have the earliest time.
We are definitely getting that barbecue on. So
all right. Love you, brother.
I love you too, man.
Have a good day.